All right, welcome everyone to our session here. Sorry, we're getting started a little delayed, but we're very excited to have you all here. Next slide, please. Again, huge thank you. You have lots of other places you could choose to spend your morning or afternoon or whatever time you're currently in, and you chose it to spend it with us, so we really appreciate that. So if this is part 2 of a multi-part series, if you're just hearing of PeerNova today and you're wondering who are these folks, it's probably because for the last 10 years, we've been focused on solving data quality assurance issues for large banks. Last year, we realized a lot of these data quality issues are things that are similar challenges Salesforce customers are facing. And so we joined the Salesforce Partner Program, became an ISV, and within 3 months had launched our first application for Salesforce CRM. Few months after that, we launched the first application for Data Cloud with Salesforce. Very excited about those. There's a lot of interest and excitement about Data Cloud. We're certainly very interested and excited about it. There's also some uncertainty. So our goal with this series is to cut through that confusion and show you what's really possible today. So if you're an architect or an aspiring architect on the call today, we hope to show you, or we will show you, what's technically possible with GA-only features. So everything will be generally available functionality. And we hope to help you have conversations after this with your business stakeholders about the opportunities that exist for your business that you could start taking advantage of, and show your CFO or your finance team, whoever needs to fund this, that these are well thought out strategies that will generate value in return for your business. So coming up on the webinar series, the next one will be February 13th. There's a registration link right there, and we'll post it again in the chat. But we'll be talking next about Data Cloud and how to use the free credits to take the most advantage of those. So with that, I will turn it over to our wonderful speakers today, Mehmet Arun and Alan Dre, to introduce themselves. Mehmet.
Thanks, Haley. I will briefly give a showing of my head for those of you that have known me and are used to finding me with the fedoras. Haley's introduction is meaningful because at the end of the day, we should never do technology initiatives unless we have a clear business outcome in mind. And having been a customer of the Salesforce platform, having been responsible for data quality in Salesforce, been a practice leader, been a product manager, understanding the importance of being able to solve tangible business problems while giving any consultant, any architect, the confidence they need is incredibly important. The last point that Haley made on the CFO side is one item we don't talk often enough. Data Cloud actually brought this in the forefront because it is a credit-based solution. Companies want to make sure that they are making the most out of their investments. And we believe Data Cloud actually brings a level of transparency to what it takes to achieve Customer 360 and to take advantage of this. This is a quest I have been on with Alan for actually 12 years, at least. We went at data.com days, for those of you that remember that, with B2B. We worked in customer success as part of the data strategy practice together, and then the first Customer 360 product data manager. So it's a pleasure to share the stage with you again, Alan.
Yes, and sharing it, I'm sorry I don't have my camera. I haven't been able to get it up and running, but I think you're all probably better off for that. I'm Alan Dre, and as Mehmet has kind of said, we've been working together for 12 years on these B2B problems within Salesforce. So I've been with Salesforce for 12 years. I'm currently a multi-cloud solution architect with our CSG Global Readiness team, and I've been a part of that team for the last couple of years as we've been evolving some of our use cases around Data Cloud. So let's just jump right in, because you're going to hear my voice a lot in a lot of the talking that I'm doing here, and I'm hoping that I'll draw Mehmet in periodically to give us some commentary. But let's start this whole thing off by, again, it wouldn't be a Salesforce presentation without it, but let's first give a quick reminder that Salesforce is a publicly traded company, and customers should base their purchasing decisions on products and services that are currently available. So let's get started. We want to start talking today about the multi-cloud challenges and the challenges that our customers face in this multi-cloud world. Then we'll review the B2B 360 use case that brought us here today, and we've developed a solution around. Then what we'll do is we'll show you a demo of the experience that we built for the use cases that we've come up with. And then after that, we'll go a little bit deeper into the solution with both Data Cloud and the core platform being used. And as a kind of a wrap up, we really want to talk about your multi-org strategy a little bit. And Mehmet's going to help me out a lot there because he's got a lot of in-depth experience. And finally, we're hopefully going to have some time for the Q&A. So let's talk about the CRM multi-org strategy. We can start by just admitting that many customers have multi-orgs. There's many reasons for this. Some of those are due to different business units needing flexibility and isolation, growth through mergers and acquisitions, and geographic distribution. Regardless of the reason, customers still want a 360 view across orgs, but different orgs have different data models, they have different data content and context, overlapping customer records exist, and these need to be unified to deliver a consistent, complete, contextual, and compliant insights for the customer. And okay, so do I need to do an org merge? With Data Cloud and the tools that we're going to be talking about, not likely. But org merges are still a tool if it's a proven need, right? So we're going to dig into this a little bit more later at the end of the presentation. So most Salesforce demos on Data Cloud have focused on seeing a unified customer view in the org where you've installed Data Cloud or the Data Cloud home org. Today, we're going to show you how you can see that unified customer view and the engagements with those customers in any org that's connected to Data Cloud and all your source orgs. Now, let's do a high-level review of the use case and what we did to solve it. So first of all, it's a B2B business need that we're trying to address. We want to be able to allow sales executives to know of white space and cross-sell opportunities. We want to be able to maintain firewalls between competing sales teams, so our inside sales teams and our partner sales teams. We want to be able to provide service agents with a broad view of the customer engagements that have occurred for the company. And we want to provide a consolidated views of the hierarchy of a customer because that customer can be fairly complex in its hierarchy. Secondly, we really wanted to focus on our use of the GA Data Cloud features and App Exchange features that are available today. So we're ingesting multiple CRM data sources using the CRM connector. We're using data enrichment and data management tools to enhance the matching, modeling, mapping, harmonization designs that we've come up with. And we use batch transforms to ensure complete data. And finally, we've really developed some of these things around the data graphs to kind of test our increased performance as pertains to those graphs. And then finally, last but not least, building the foundation that we have and the patterns that we've developed, we've leveraged unified data in Data Cloud in any connected org, right? And we've operationalized experiences with flow and reusable services. We use external services to simplify the outbound callouts, which is another core platform feature. And we minimize the apex complexity, right? We've kind of gotten away from the invocable actions that are out there, which have a little bit different interface to be able to call them.
Before we go into details, because some of you may be here because you're curious about multi-org, even though your company, your customers are B2C. While we are going to show you a B2B example, the need is the same if you're a B2C company with different brands, with different lines of business, different CRM instances, and you may choose to reward your better customers with a higher tier of service. You may want to have an understanding of total lifetime value across multiple instances while still segregating data for data security purposes, while still having different CRM instances for process-independent reasons. But the playbook, the technical know-how of knowing what is your overlap, as opposed to guessing or thinking I do or don't have overlaps, and how to achieve these results are going to be identical.
All right, we good to move into the demo?
Sounds great.
Good comment. All right, let's take a quick look at the demo. Hopefully this works and shows me. All right, so everybody should be seeing a Salesforce instance This is actually a data source instance. So the demo that you're going to see, as Haley pointed out and as I've said, is really going to be not the Data Cloud home instance. It's a source of data that went into Data Cloud. So this is actually the connected connected data source. So let's take a look. We'll start with the accounts that we worked in and that we actually ingested in here. So as we looked at the enriched accounts, you begin to see how there's a lot of attributes that we've kind of brought in from our enrichment source. So we've used D&B Connect to enrich our accounts in this data source instance. And here, some of the attributes kind of going left to right. The account type is a very important attribute. Now, this isn't an enriched attribute coming from D&B. This is how I've designated my accounts, and this is going to help me with my kind of security rules. This is the separation of the teams that may be approaching these and selling to these individual customers. Then we see that the DUNS numbers and some of the hierarchy information that we've been able to bring in from D&B. Now, the DUNS number itself, very similar in nature to maybe an MDM identifier or other identifiers you may have, but it's like a driver's license to an individual. It basically gives me an identifier for that account that I can now trust and use as I go through my identity resolution and the other pieces that we're going to be talking about. The hierarchy attributes that you see here are things we're going to be able to take into account as we start developing an overall view of the account and the company as a whole. So those are attributes that we're able to bring in and help us enrich the data. Other attributes here, like the operating status, is one of those things that we can take advantage of as we start talking about how we would remove records that are not important to us, remove data from the system that's coming into Data Cloud that really isn't important to us. And here you see some out of business records that we may be able to kind of ignore in the process. Other attributes that we have coming in: employee size, annual revenue. These are attributes that really can be used from a segmentation perspective, how we might be able to segment, some of the filtering that we can do to make sure that we're really focused on the accounts that we want to focus on. Mehmet, did you have any comments that you wanted to add?
Oh, always, man. So you can already see, even in a single CRM org, we are not looking at multiple orgs here. You may have reason for intentional duplicates. You are going to have customer versus partner accounts representing different type of relationships. You may have relationship with different entities within what you would consider a customer. Perhaps in the B2C world, this is going to be the household individual model. And you're going to have different kind of insights that we are gathering. So one of the best practices we always talk about is use the level of data quality in your primary CRM as indicative of your opportunity, and then realize if you have a level of disconnects within your org, how much more insights could you take advantage of if you accessed other insights in other orgs. With B2B, using solutions such as DNB or Bureau van Dijk are incredibly powerful because it helps us go beyond the idea of string matching. There are similar solutions that exist in the B2C world as well.
Yeah, perfect, Mehmet. I appreciate that. All right, so let's continue forward. I'm going to drill in here to one of our accounts and start looking at some of the operational use case that we've developed. So as soon as we jump into this account, you begin to see some of the data, right? So you have your details here on the left, but what you're seeing on the right-hand side is actually now a view of the unified account. And in that unified account, you have a name, you can have multiple phone numbers, multiple party identifiers, multiple addresses. So basically you begin to see it, and it unfolds the number of contact points that you would have associated with that particular unified account. And again, you can see some of the address information here. There is what appears to be multiple, like duplicate addresses in here. One having the country is really the difference between those two. So taking advantage of other App Exchange possibilities or being able to do address validation and enrichment may be one of the things that you'd really want to be looking at for some of the account information that you have. So let's jump real quick into the unified account tab. Now, I've organized this into tabs because, one, I'm representing multiple use cases here because you'll ultimately see a sales agent use case and a service agent use case in here. And the tabs allow me to kind of isolate those use cases, but it also adds to, I'm not immediately pulling a lot of data up all at once into the form. So doing things kind of as needed for the experience that I'm trying to develop. In this particular case, you begin to see another version of the unified account details component that you're seeing off on the right-hand side. Now, the same component is being used underneath here. What's happening is that I'm actually retrieving the data in two different ways. So this data is being retrieved by a SQL statement, and I'm using the API to be able to do that via SQL. And on the right-hand side here, I'm using a data graph. So you can get the same result. It's just, which is going to be more performant when you start getting in and you start working with it. I just wanted to kind of demonstrate that really quickly. However, as we start taking advantage of some of the data that you saw in the enriched accounts, we can build what would be a unified hierarchy. So I brought all of this data into Data Cloud. I can now start representing it using the attributes that I've been able to ingest across all the sources that I brought in. So right away, you see Salesforce, and I can collapse or I can expand that Salesforce. You can see that the blue highlighted area is this account record that I brought in. So that's actually, and it's a local customer. So in other cases where I'll see that local customer designation, I can navigate to that record. So as I scroll down, I can see all of the different accounts that are associated with this hierarchy. And from a leveling perspective, I can see where there are accounts that have multiple levels. So in this case, I can see there's a second level here, but even further, it can go as deep as you need it to go and be able to drill in. So this being a local partner, I can right mouse button here and click over to that particular record, and I can now start dealing and working with that account right from within the hierarchy that I developed. So you see the unified account and all of the other attributes that you can get for that particular one. All right, let me go back here. So we see that we can navigate off to the local instances. We have non-local instances that we can associate or are associated with this hierarchy. But next, let's start looking at the use cases and the operational aspects of what we've developed. So related cases. I now know I have a hierarchy. I now know I have a unified account. So as I start looking at my cases for this particular account for Salesforce, I can see that there's no direct cases for this account. That's my standard related list. But then as I develop other components that start showing me, the different sets of data, I have my cases for my unified account, where in this case, there's only one. And then as I start pulling further into the hierarchy and I gather my cases, I can see it's growing. So the number of cases I can start seeing for that entire hierarchy, for the company, at the company level, at the global ultimate level. So, and what's interesting about these components is that it is the same component, simply that pulling different data from Data Cloud based on the criteria for that out. So that's our service agent use case. We can give them a complete view of the engagement that they've had for cases. And we can also do that for our sales executives. So I can pull in the opportunities. I can see opportunities that are local to this particular instance. I can also see for the unified account the opportunities that are available. And here's where I'm starting to be able to take advantage of some of the data on those engagement records and really start providing information for it. So total value is just one thing. You can start really digging into opportunities at different stages that could ultimately give you different values for like a forecast of some sort across these opportunities. And as I get into Global Ultimate, you see it expands even greater so that I can get whatever value I have out of those. And again, I can navigate directly to any one of these that are local to this particular instance on the Salesforce. And I'm in the opportunity, and I can now start working with that opportunity just as I would any other time, but I can navigate to it from here. So really the demo is pretty straightforward. Mehmet, do you have anything else you want to add?
So there are three main points I want to emphasize here as we go through this, and you're gonna notice Ellen and I are gonna do this tag teaming a lot. Number one, instead of having hypothetical conversations on what a customer 360 could look like for your business, coming up with a vision that shows what do those related insights can look like to power a use case is incredibly important. And especially if you're a consultant, but also if you're someone seeking to make a business case, come up with your own view of this type of a picture before investing time in technology. It is going to help engage your stakeholders on the potential value. Number two, you might have heard us talk about the importance of complete, current, contextual, and compliant information that can be delivered through Data Cloud. This has been the quest for the millions spent in MDM type projects historically. What you see here is the idea of complete isn't just transactions on one account record, but across all related account records, across different places. Context is about what is the end user seeking to achieve. Building a service view for a service agent that is allowed to see any data, whether it came from inside sales or partner sales, is both contextual and compliant. While in your opportunity view, you can build different views for your inside sales teams and partner sales teams that do not cross boundaries, respecting those firewalls as well. So hopefully these patterns are helpful. And point number three, identifying opportunities like this, business use cases like this, is how you can also take advantage of your free Data Cloud credits. This is what we are going to get into the details of in our February webinar. And I see Haley posted the registration link on that one already.
All right, good stuff. So let's go back to the presentation here, and we can start digging into, I think where Mehmet's going is talking about the data here. What I want to get into as far as where we're going is what is and how did we get to the demo that I just kind of showed you. So we'll throw in some technology here, but we're obviously going to talk about how we implemented and did some of the data quality things as well. So were we going to be taking a poll? Or are we skipping that?
Not yet. We have another one coming up in a few.
You guys hearing me?
Yes, go forward, Alan.
Okay. All right, so let's do the deep dive. All right, this slide might be familiar to many of you. We often talk about Data Cloud product and how it can offer value to our customers. What I'm going to show you is not just the power of the Data Cloud product, but a broader Data Cloud platform, including the features used in the creation of the demo components we just showed, as well as the benefit of the data enrichment and data management solutions to help our customers and partners implement solutions faster, with designs producing more reliable data. You'll see these used in the creation of the demo components that we just showed. So we can implement the solutions and realize the value of the Data Cloud and custom designs and data. For example, we used insights from the D&B, which we showed in the firmographic information, as well as the hierarchy information, to go beyond Data Cloud's account name and address matching capabilities and provide a complete 360 view of the company and its relationships and to all of those things within its hierarchy. And we started using new solutions being built on and for Data Cloud, like Uniform for Data Cloud, to help us efficiently assess and manage the data we used in the solution that we showed. All right, now we can talk about how we connected, assessed, and transformed our data sources. Did you need to want to add anything there, Mehmet, from the last section?
No, not as much. You know, what you're going to see is how do we build all of these together, and the importance of doing things with familiar interfaces in secure and performant ways. And we would love to get questions on any of these, from those of you listening to us live.
Okay. All righty. So we started out by using out-of-the-box Salesforce CRM connector, as I mentioned before, to connect all our multiple CRM instances. Each data stream represents the objects we needed to support our project in the demo that you saw. There are so many fields in each object coming in our data streams. We needed to assess each field's value. Data Explorer is a valuable tool, but it's ineffective as a tool for assessing the ingested data. So let's take a quick detour just to see if you're all still with us. Haley, you want to start a poll?
All right. Next poll, curious how many custom fields do your CRM objects have as we talk about needing to unify all this data? Mehmet, I think you had some other fun data facts you wanted to throw out as we collect the poll.
So
You want me to go to the slide?
If you remember my intro, I'll ad-lib as people are entering their answers.
Okay.
Having been in CFG in the data practice, having been a customer of Salesforce for a long time, you gather stories. And then if you can't sleep at night in Ohana Slack, there's a channel called Why Admins Drink. You can read even more stories. I have seen pick list values where there may be 80 plus different values configured, where maybe 15 or 20 of those values have ever been used in this 10-year-old org. We have seen fields added to the solution without being removed from pages that stayed on the user interface that impacted negatively the user experience. And even when we hide those unused or no longer used fields from the user interface, because these object definitions become available for your analytics developers, for CRMA, for Tableau, for Data Cloud, it ends up creating a fairly significant amount of waste in people trying to figure out whether data matters or not. So if we have gotten enough answers, I'm curious what the audience is saying, but here is why we wanted to ask the question.
So here are the answers, which I think are a little different than what we've seen in a broader Salesforce ecosystem. So I'm going to hide the results and turn it back over to Alan.
All right, cool. All right. So Mehmet, did you want to go over the statistics that we have?
So when we look at enterprise customers, these are typically your like 500 million or greater revenue a year, and that have been on the Salesforce platform for 5 or more years. In your most common objects, opportunities, cases, accounts, we see more than 200 custom fields. Interestingly enough, we also see 10 to 25 of these custom fields that have not been used in the current plus last 3 years, because business processes change, people decide to change the UI, change the way information is gathered. And that being the state of information in a typical Salesforce CRM object, when we interviewed more than 10 certified data cloud consultants across different companies and said, how do you figure out data that matters, the data that you need to map, standardized model? The answer we got was, well, we use Tableau or dbeaver. They use spreadsheets. They share the spreadsheets, put it in front of the stakeholders, and it takes an average of 4 weeks consistently across everyone we interviewed to analyze 10 to 15 DLOs. The challenge with that is if you're trying to go fast, if you're trying to show time to value fast, there has to be a more efficient way of doing this. And if we go over to the next slide, this is one of the reasons as a company, we decided to go after the data management, deeper data assessment need of the Data Cloud product, being a member of the Data Cloud platform. So Alan, you have been working on Data Cloud since before it was called Data Cloud. You're familiar with the data profiling solutions we needed. Back to you on how these insights help you with your design and execution.
I am, and I have indeed. So what we did is we took advantage of Cuneiform for Data Cloud to assess the data, starting with identifying the fields that mattered, right, as we pointed out. In our CRM sources, we found that there were a large number of unused fields. We were able to identify the important fields to guide our data modeling and mapping exercises. We also use distinct value profiling and distinct value statistics to guide many of our design decisions. And bad contact points, which we'll always find, and identifier values were highlighted so that they could be removed from the data before they impacted the match results. As we see here, a familiar phone number from TV and movies, 555-555-555. It looks like a good candidate for us to be able to ignore and to pull out of the data so that it doesn't impact our matching. Using some of our firmographic attributes, we can identify records that are irrelevant and exclude them from the B2B profiles we create. So removing non-classified accounts is kind of a great way to start. And given all we learned in our assessment, we created data quality formulas for the records ingested. And then we could take into account, as we'll show in our transformation, some of these formulas. Mehmet, do you want to describe some of these formulas?
Look, we have been talking in the Salesforce ecosystem on power of formulas for a long time. What we are going to suggest that every one of you should use is, once you assess your data and identify what data content may lead to negative outcomes, use those profiling insights to configure your data quality formulas, plural, so you can assess whether different records are fit for purpose as part of your overall data streaming design. The example you see is something we designed for account records we are ingesting, because we don't want to bring out of business accounts into the process. They are no longer going to be relevant, or perhaps we want to identify them so they can be cleansed. We want to know when an entity is a subsidiary versus a headquarters, because subsidiaries aren't those we are selling to. We may want to identify companies marked as holding companies, because holding companies don't tend to buy for our line of business. The idea is the way you assess data can inform your data reliability assessment formulas, which you can then incorporate to your end-to-end design process. And you'll see why this matters later on too.
Right, and you can take advantage of these formulas or actually put them in different areas. They can be part of a transform, a batch transform. They can be part of your source record that you're ingesting in. So each one of your sources would have a context-specific formulas that they may be using. So again, as we get into the transform, which we begin to see here, you can see how we might be able to take advantage of some of the data coming in from a formula, or create the formula within the transform itself. So in our batch transform, we took advantage of each aspect of our assessment and the data quality formulas to fine tune our data through the batch data transform, starting with the primary filter, where only data that was fit for purpose was really processed through the transform. We could also take advantage of our learnings for each of the contact points that were created and create filters at that contact point specific level. Once we were able to filter down to the right data, we could create each contact point type and create a row in our custom data lake objects shaped just for that contact point. And we'll show you kind of how it makes mapping a little bit easier. So using the batch data transforms to ensure data reliability, in the end, helped us avoid credit waste and provide a better end-to-end experience. All right, so now let's talk about harmonization. We can discuss how we make the leap into identity resolution and the data we needed to do that. So let's take a quick look at how we mapped our data streams into custom data lake objects. You can see here that our engagement data is ingested to the data stream into related data lake objects mapped directly to the associated data model objects. The custom data lake objects are not shown to come from a data stream. They're populated by the batch transform like we discussed. And then they're mapped to the data model objects that'll be used in identity resolution. There may be cases where you'll want to transform your engagement data, as we did for our profile data. In our case, wasn't necessary, as the primary focus for this project was account unification, and really our unification through the identity resolution process, ensuring that the data was clean as possible, but still able to build relationships back to the engagement data. This basically holds for our transformations. You can see how it simplifies and how we transform the data that just simplified the transforms. And it performed not only allowed us to filter the data, but the data that was fit for purpose, but allowed us to simplify the mapping to our data lake objects, and from there, from the data model objects. All right, now that we've done all our mapping and our data sources for both engagement and profile data, we can set up our identity resolution. We use one match rule for both contact points and account identifiers. Because all the data quality work we had done, we can be more confident in the match quality. As the data quality improves, your consolidation rate should improve, although a good consolidation rate is not an indicator of data quality. Mehmet, anything to add?
Okay, to keep this short so we get to questions too, the reason we highlighted the importance of identifying likely fake or likely bad information, the 555 phone number, is one of the most important steps in your data unification is identity resolution. And if you don't know what records to filter out in advance in an effective way, it is going to impact not only your data reliability, it is also going to lead to credit waste, because matching processes is one of the more expensive operations in the system. The good news is, if you go through the different iterations, you can see the results on the screen. And this is the power of the Data Cloud platform, where all of the capabilities are actually working as part of a common data model in a secure way.
Yep, good clarification. All right, once our identity resolution has created our account unification, we can take advantage of the unified data model objects. Many times you hear about the use of these objects in segmentation for marketing use cases. Well, these aren't marketing use cases, but for our operational use cases in sales and service, building a data graph is one of the best ways to facilitate a view of this data. The data graph here is a simple hierarchy of related unified data model objects, starting with the unified account and including all of the contact points and the account linkage for account link for lineage. Future extensions of the project will begin to include source data context coming from the relationship to the unified link object, as well as engagement data that can also be linked here. Managing the payload size will be important to the number of callouts required to bring data into the experience, developed both for complexity and performance. Although a data graph can bring more data in a single payload, the payload still has to be parsed. All right, now let's talk about how we made the data available for our Salesforce applications. This is how we'll get a little bit deeper into the implementation that we've done and how we activated this data back out for our operational use cases. All right, so we've done a lot of work to this point. We've got a ton of data from different sources that we've ingested, enriched, assessed, transformed, modeled, mapped, matched, and graphed. So what now? We're going to activate this data out to our other CRM instances. So to do that, we need to talk about the Data Cloud non-home or the data source instances that are connected to Data Cloud with ingestion via the data streams. So the instance on the left indicates Service Cloud, but this could be any of the CRM instances included in the Data Cloud Home CRM, including the Data Cloud Home CRM instance. The connection between the auth provider and the connected app used in the named credential tells the authentication process where to go and get authenticated. It makes the most sense for the CRM org to be a data source ingested into Data Cloud, given most of these operational interactions will start with the ingested record from a data source. It's, however, possible to connect to a CRM org that's not acting as a data source if the use case requires it. The pattern, while having some complexities in implementation, provides maximum flexibility, as the CRM instance does not have to be a production instance, but can also be a sandbox, given it does not have to be the Data Cloud Home. As you develop with this pattern, we need to keep in mind the Data Cloud API limits, and the number of API calls and the concurrent calls need to be thought of. And that's why we use kind of the tabbing approach to the implementation of the experience that we showed. So I want to talk briefly about the pattern that evolved as we built our solution. First and foremost, the delivery of a user experience on a core platform doesn't have to be complex. There's many foundational tools like Flow and external services paired with the repeating patterns that you can develop can create a more streamlined implementation. So let's go over kind of the pattern that we've developed. First, we'll talk about the screen flow. So that thing that's going to show you the component, right? So the component's the top level that'll be displayed as a screen component, a Lightning Web component in many cases, using a data retrieval from Data Cloud. So the flow retrieves the data via the subflow, creates needed objects, and passes those objects to the screen component for display. So basically consolidating all of the work that's really done with the data inside Flow. In our second step, we retrieve the data. So this is basically the subflow that I mentioned in the first step, and we call out to Data Cloud using the flow actions and Apex classes created and exposed by the external service. So when you create the external service, it creates these Apex classes that can be used in Flow. And this flow can be used to retrieve any data supported by the APIs and defined by the external service. The fault handling or error processing would be done here so that it could then hand back to the screen flow the outcomes so that the screen would know how to display and how to react to those things. And then in our third step, we call out the Data Cloud home. So basically use the external service definition that we've created that specifies all of the endpoints that allows us to make the REST API calls out to Data Cloud, whether that be the data graph calls or whether that be the query API, the profile API. The external service uses a named credential to handle authentication. So authentication is handled by the external service and under the hood. And finally, one of the things that we've and I've been working with is how we can make parsing the responses of this JSON easier. And I've started using Aura-enabled annotated Apex to be able to parse those JSON responses coming back from the external service. And it would create an Aura-enabled annotated object also so that it would be usable in Flow, allowing us to create a foundational kind of a generic response. Right, these flows are accessible. Apex classes will have exposed getter and setter methods that can be used in Flow assignment nodes and formula variables. So you can take advantage of these things inside of Flow much easier than you can in others. And ultimately, the outcome of these steps, as we saw in the demo, is a streamlined development and implementation effort for creating components for customer experiences. On this page, we have a Flow component that retrieved data and then display it, along with many other things that the Flow can do, right? If we look at the opportunity related list, we see two components that call the same subflow to retrieve the data, passing different parameters to the subflow. And while the component flow that uses a data graph uses different retrieval flow, it follows the same patterns of implementation as the other components. So makes sense, simplify it, make it work in a pattern such that it can be repeated. So, all right, so where we can wrap up. Mehmet, is there anything else we want to add? Oh wait,
well, I
think there's one more section that I think we want to go into here.
Yeah, I don't think we can quite wrap up, right? Because if the only thing we wanted to do was do a proof of concept and demonstrate to everyone that yes, you can in fact retrieve data from Data Cloud to any connected org, including sandboxes, that mission, hopefully all of you would agree, is complete. However, there is one other consideration, one other best practice we believe everyone should be aware of, and that is whether you have multiple orgs, whether you have multiple data sources, data is always changing. Configurations are always changing. So not only you should have a data unification strategy, you also want to have the capability to monitor data trends over time, identify when data or metadata configuration may be changing to make sure that not only your data is reliable and your design is resilient, you can also use this information to forecast future credit demand. So let's look at what else you can do through the power of the platform. Solutions like Uniform for Data Cloud allows you to schedule profiling jobs at frequency based on your need. So you can see how field population rates are changing, how record volumes are changing, how value frequencies are changing over time. Next. Not only you can look at these 4 basic data field rates, remember the data quality rule we talked about earlier? You can also look at your data reliability over a period of time, because as business processes change, you want to make sure that the data you're bringing in and acting upon in Data Cloud is and stays reliable over the life of your solution. Next. The good news is when you have native solutions to the platform, the way you interact with it, whether it is a report or whether in this case it is a flow, is all done with native tools, which makes it easier to use, easier to learn, and also more secure as well. With Uniform for Data Cloud, you can have templates that allow you to specify the frequency. So when you see the results, you can monitor your data reliability, you can monitor your value frequency, and you can also use these patterns to see when there may be unexpected changes or drops. So you can respond proactively. You can also see the more regular growth trends, so you can make educated calculations on how many credits you may need in future years.
All right, we're going to do a summary here, Mehmet. Do we want to start winding up so we can get some questions and answers in?
Absolutely. So okay, we wanted to show you how to have a multi-org strategy and how to build that solution at the end. That said, let's be frank. If you have only few overlapping customers, you can determine the quantification across orgs. You have a UK instance, you have a US instance, they never seem to overlap. You may not actually need a data unification strategy because they are completely independent. However, what we see is oftentimes there are overlapping customers, both in consumer and B2B areas. And then you need to decide, is the second org, and this only really holds true when you have fewer orgs, is so similar in data content and business process that the effort of doing the org merge is worth it. So you only maintain one application going forward. And then use what we just showed you in Data Cloud as a way to show the value of that action and to uncover the data complexities you're going to need to tackle as part of your org merge. In most cases, though, we believe you do not need to go through the time, effort, cost, and complexity of org merges, especially when you have different data shapes, different data processes in your multiple orgs, and you can securely and confidently use Data Cloud as your hub while providing complete, consistent, contextual, and compliant data to different use cases. That is what we have. I think we have one call to action for you if you like this level of detail, and we want to take the next several minutes to take your live questions.
Yes, so again, we are hosting a follow-up to this on February 13th, talking more specifically and tactically about how to take advantage of the free credits that you get with Salesforce Data Cloud without wasting them, and being able to prove a use case like this before you're consumed all of them. So we do have some great questions. Please keep them coming. We'll try to address everything. The first is one that I also share, Alan, because I've lived through the pain of org merges, and they were fairly simple org merges, but they still took a really, really long time. So how much time did it take you to build all of this?
Well, actually, going through the whole thing, I would say that, and again, I've been doing this for a little while, the couple of years that I've been doing it with Data Cloud, I would say the effort is about a 2-week effort. Again, most of it, as we were developing it, I was developing also patterns of implementation that would make things easier to develop. So kind of thinking not just on how do I get this done for this webinar and for the things that we're going to be doing, but how do I start being able to explain to people a better way of thinking about using the core platform capabilities to interact with the Data Cloud data and bringing it through for these operational experiences. So again, so it's a little bit more in depth as far as how it was developed, and it really was about a 2-week period and to get the components and everything to function.
Awesome. So much faster than any org merge I have personal experience with. I'm sure there are some really aggressive timelines to do a full org unification, but this seems like the way faster path to just seeing all of your customer sales and service data in one place. All right, yeah. Sarah has raised her hand, so I'm going to unmute Sarah and let her ask her question. Sarah, you should be able to go.
That was accidental, I'm sorry.
Oh, no worries. Thanks for being here. All right, next question. Is there any cost to Data Cloud Connect?
Data Cloud Connect.
Yes, I think this question came up when we were talking about the connected hyperscale section of the deck.
Well, if you're talking about the CRM, the Salesforce CRM connector, obviously it's a connector that's native to Data Cloud and available for Data Cloud with the Salesforce orgs. There's always, when you're processing data through any of the connectors in the Data Cloud, it's all consumption based. So it depends on how obviously you've licensed it, what your license beginnings are, and all of those types of things. So from an overall cost perspective, it's not really something that I focus on myself from an architect's perspective.
The way I have read this is If you're bringing data from Salesforce, CRM sources, that is a component that comes out of the box with Data Cloud when you get it. And as Alan said, it is about the threaded consumption. Now, having owned an end-to-end solution in multiple times in my career, if I'm hosting my data in AWS, GCP, Azure, regardless of technology, I am actually paying a credit-based costing. What is happening here is it is a much more transparent credit-based consumption model when you're retrieving the data to visualize it for distinct business use cases. And to reemphasize the point Alan made on why different tabs to provide different contextual information, you should only access data when you need it, when there's a business reason for it. And the way the information is coming together and presented, in my opinion, is the most efficient way of actually executing it.
And connecting back, there's always, when you're dealing with the APIs and those types of things, again, a lot of that has to do with the platform and platform callouts, but also the calling into Data Cloud as we start thinking about connecting from both ends, right? The ingestion process and the egress process of being able to bring that data out and visualize it. There's always something that's going on there, so you want to be conscious of the architecture that you implement in all cases so that you can basically effectively manage those call outs and the call ins on the Data Cloud side.
All right, we had another hand raiser. I chatted you. If you would like me to unmute you, please let me know. Oh, and I'm going to take that as a yes because you raised your hand again. So apologies in advance if I'm mispronouncing your name, Jai Shri. Go ahead.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, thank you so much for your time. This session has been very informative. Thank you so much for conducting it. I've just joined an organization and they already have Snowflake as their data warehouse. I think one of my question got answered in Mehmet's last explanation about different data warehouses, but I was just wondering, like, we are preparing an RFP to push Data Cloud over Snowflake, and what would be like the key features, or what in general, like I do understand that Snowflake would be for scalability, but at the same time, like all the webinars that I'm attending, Data House seems to also be going in that direction. So do you have any like suggestions for me on that?
Well, I at least have opinions, and I would need more information.
That's really what they would be, is more opinions, but yes. Go ahead.
Look, at the end of the day, no matter where you're hosting your data, you need to understand the state of the data and reliability of the data. I don't know if the data in your Snowflake instance is already standardized, if you have already matched and reconciled records to look at your customer, partner, supplier, employee relationships using identity resolution best practices. If you have not profiled your data to see if you may have intentional or unintentional duplicates, that is really your first step, because it's going to give you quantifiable insights on what the opportunity may be. And Data Cloud does work with data in Snowflake, that if all you need to do is expose it to power different activation scenarios, great. If you want to take some of that data and combine the data from other sources to build a unified profile, then your actions are going to be much more constrained. Because Snowflake, as powerful as a solution as it is, and we use it internally ourselves as a company, by the way, it doesn't have a master data management type component. It does not have some of these other capabilities, which is what makes Data Cloud Profile a more unified experience that is easier and faster to implement than any other combination of technologies you would need to bring together. So I would evaluate data in your Snowflake instance for data quality first, for a distinct business outcome, and then see what you're not able to do to engage those entities, whether they are your customers or suppliers, and then work through that activation use case similar to the way that Ellen walked us through. That would be my opinion.
And that's absolutely, it can always be a hybrid. We believe that it can, a lot of the capabilities as far as ingesting the data and being able to manage the data in Data Cloud are there, just as they would be in Snowflake. And then Data Cloud adds then the segmentation and activation capabilities from the marketing use cases as well as these operational use cases, allowing you to be able to use the calculated insights, the data graphs, all of those things to be able to either visualize or bring the data out into your world so that you can actually develop the experiences on top of it from a Salesforce perspective.
I'm also going to offer, since we are 3 minutes over, if you want to have a deeper conversation, feel free to reach out, directly email, LinkedIn, and we can set up a time and brainstorm on your specific needs.
Thank you so much. And I definitely, like, this has given me direction. I was thinking in those lines. I've just joined, so I've not got like fully understood what they are retrieving in Snowflake and all. So once like I have the full understanding, I'll reach out to you.
Cool. That'll be good. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Sure.
I look forward
All
to
right, that is all the time we have for questions. Thank you for everyone who submitted questions and all the attendees for being here today. We look forward to meeting in a few weeks and talking more about Data Cloud free credits. Thanks, everyone. Good night.
Thank you all.